Having the workshop during 2 days, today and tomorrow, so we have a very interesting program, many speakers, many interesting talks, so I hope you enjoy this event that we have prepared for highlighting the importance of this topic, the astronomy for inclusion, diversity, equity. So thanks again for joining, and I will be presenting a little bit the idea behind the workshop. We will have a sort of very short opening ceremony, and then we will go straight to our conferences. So I have to mention that we are live streaming also this event so that many people can join and watch all the videos and conferences. But also hello to all the people connected to the Zoom platform that have already registered to the event. So thanks for being part of this initiative. So the idea is that we will be sharing some experiences from many people from different places around the world, and we would like for those people to share those experiences so that many more people can adapt all their ideas to make astronomy more inclusive, and how astronomy can be used as a tool for promoting inclusiveness and equity in general. So let me also thank all our sponsors. Here are some of the institutions that have cooperated for making this workshop possible. Thank you very much to all of them. And I have to say also that this is the second version because we already had the first version a few years ago. Actually, 5 years ago, we were sharing with many of you in Colombia, in Cartagena de Indias, a very historical place in South America. And that was the first of these workshops where we actually were very interested in the topic. In the last few years, we have been developing more initiatives around the idea of astronomy being more inclusive. So this represented at that time an international effort where many of you cooperated also to make it possible. And I have to thank also the Division C of the International Astronomical Union, the working group number 3. And the idea is to be able to highlight more and more of these initiatives, and that probably in 5 years we will be here again sharing not 2 days, but probably the whole week with many interesting talks. So actually, I will share some of the pictures that were taken 5 years ago in Cartagena, so you might probably find yourself in one of these pictures. We were not many, because obviously to move to Colombia wasn't that easy, but at least we share a lot of experiences, and I believe that that was like a seed for promoting also inclusion in our region, in Latin America, in South America, Central America. So there are very known faces in these photographs. Actually, if you go to the website of the second workshop, you will find a link to all these images if you are interested in just having a look at all the different tools and ideas that were highlighted 5 years ago. Okay, so basically, this is an interdisciplinary meeting with the participation of astronomers, educators, and disability specialists. And the idea is to provide an opportunity to continue promoting new strategies, to work toward specific objectives, and to share experiences and discuss the most recent applications. As I mentioned, this workshop will be live streamed, so we are already in YouTube. You can access the channel of the National Astronomical Observatory of Colombia. And also, let me introduce myself. My name is Santiago Vargas. I am Associate Professor at the National Astronomical Observatory of Colombia, which actually is the oldest observatory in the whole continent in America. It was founded in 1803. And right now is part of the National University of Colombia. You are all invited to go to Bogota if you want to have a look at this historical place where astronomy began in the American continent. I have to thank also all the members of the scientific organizing committee. I want to name them. So it's Beatrice Garcia from Instituto de Tecnologías y Detección en Astropartículas en Argentina, Ángela Pérez from Planetarium of Medellín, Planetario de Medellín in Colombia, Nicolás Vázquez from Escuela Politécnica Nacional in Ecuador, Sonia Dufau from the Associated Universities and National Radio Astronomy Observatory. She's based in Chile. And Gary Hemming from the European Gravitational Observatory, EGO and Rainforce. So thank you very much, because you did a great job selecting the contributions. We had a lot of contribution, I have to say, that we planned at the beginning of this workshop for 2 days, but we didn't realize that actually we will be able to have more days, because at least 50, if I remember well, 50 contributions were submitted to be presented as oral conferences, oral presentations. And also the local organizing committee, Andres Molina from the National University of Colombia, Erika Hernandez from the same university, and Silvina Pérez Álvarez from the Instituto de Tecnologías y Detección en Astropartículas in Argentina. So thank you for all the effort done in the last couple of months to be ready for today's workshop. So let me talk a little bit about the workshop. I just want to mention by now that we will be connecting through this link for today and tomorrow, so keep the link safe. And also, if possible, don't share it, because sometimes you get the link in, I don't know, in social networks or in different places where you don't know the people who are actually trying to connect. So the idea is that if there is someone interested in the workshop, you can share the link to the Zoom channel that I will share with you in a moment. So also for this opening, we wanted to invite a couple of persons that are very much involved in these initiatives. So by the moment I won't speak more, I want to invite to the stage to these two colleagues. So please, Amelia Ortiz, she's from the University of Valencia. She's a member of the IAU Executive Committee and the Working Group of Astronomy for Inclusion and Equity. And also Susana De Ostua, she is from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and she's currently the chair of the IAU Executive Committee for the Working Group in Astronomy for Equity and Inclusion. So I believe they both are the proper people to tell us about the initiatives developed by the International Astronomical Union and how this topic is more and more of the interest of the astronomy community worldwide. So thanks for joining. You can put your cameras on and say a few words for all our participants here. So please, if you are around. Okay. Hello, Amelia. So yes, please go ahead.
I don't see Susana's video. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to see that the second workshop is happening finally after waiting for 5 years. And I think that in general we are doing some progress in raising awareness around the world about the need of addressing diversity and inclusion topics. One example I can think of now is the recent creation of the Inclusion Working Group at the European Astronomical Society. So I think we are really going along the right path. And the working group at the IAU, the International Astronomical Union, has been very active during these last years, and we have a lot of things to come in the future and a lot of projects, and I will leave Susana to explain that to you. And well, I'm really looking forward to listening to all that you have to all these great talks that you have put together in this amazing and very useful and very useful workshop. Thank you for organizing this, Carlos, and everybody else. And this is going to be amazing.
Thank you, Amelia. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good early morning for some people. I feel a little silly following Amelia because it's thanks to Amelia's leadership that the Working Group of Astronomy for Inclusion and Equity moved from Division C and is now a working group in the Executive Committee of the International Astronomical Union, and Amelia and Lina Canas are the reasons why that happened, because this is such an important topic, and their leadership in the area has proven and shown that equity, inclusion, and diversity are really issues that affect all of astronomy, professional astronomers, educators, amateurs, students, and the public as well. And I look at your program and I can't imagine how hard it was to select the few from the 50, because these are all excellent talks. And I don't really want to say anything more other than that I look forward in the next 3 years as filling the very large shoes that Amelia has worn in promoting and working with everyone around the world on these very important issues of inclusion, diversity, and equity in all its forms. So please enjoy the conference, and I will be listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Amelia, Susana. Thanks. It's a real honor to have you here, and I know you have a a lot of interest in knowing also how the astronomy for inclusion is being developed in different places that probably are not the most common ones, but there are many initiatives all around the world that we want to include in this workshop. And that's actually one of the ideas, to be very close to those initiatives and be able to replicate them in different places. So thanks for joining. I hope you also enjoy all this event. So just let me spend a very few minutes explaining a little bit how it's gonna take place, this event, this workshop. So mainly we will have 4 invited talks, 2 today and 2 for tomorrow. Every one of these, it's about 30 minutes, and we will have some time for questions and answers. And also we have a total of 20 contributed talks, 10 every day. Those presentations will last for about 12 minutes, so that we can have at least 3 minutes of questions and answers. Actually, I will take this opportunity to remind the speakers that we want them to keep on time, just to make sure that the agenda doesn't change too much, because there are people from different places, different time zones. So I know some of them have also another events at the same time. And also I have to mention that we receive poster contributions. There are 11 of them, and you can go straight to our website. The exhibition, the poster exhibition, is already uploaded there. So you can use this link, https://tiny.cc/2WAI, or you can also use this QR if you want to just take a picture or something. So please visit our poster exhibition, and if you go to the website, you will have here on the right the link to the posters. And also in the website we have the embedded video for this live streaming, so you can share even the YouTube channel, or you can share the website. Talking about the timing, we will have this timing alert. So for speakers having these 15 minutes contribution talks, they will be alerted about the timing by using a very small window on the right. Actually, you will probably see it right now if I share it. Let me just make sure. Okay, so now I activated the small timing alert. So the idea is that we try to keep the time as it is planned since the beginning. Okay, so just to mention also that the program of the conference, of the event, is uploaded in our website. You can have a look at the different conferences and the different topics, and also the time. Just bear in mind that this is GMT, so don't get confused depending on where you are. Just do the proper calculation of your times. And this is the program for today. So we will be going all day till 16:45 GMT. And tomorrow we will change a little bit our starting time. So for tomorrow, this is in a Spanish version, sorry, but there are some. Well, actually, we will be using both languages in this event, Spanish and English. So for tomorrow, we will have the opening session at the 16:30 GMT, and we will go for 4 hours till 20:45 GMT. So just make sure that you don't miss any of the interesting topics by knowing what the time will be in your places. Okay, so next, I want to give just a rough overview of the participants. So we had 375 participants, almost 170 from the academic side. We also have students and journalists, science communicators, and others. So this is great to have all this diversity also in the people interested in this event, and also different nationalities from the USA. Well, we have Latin America here also very well represented, India, and so on. But basically, you will recognize all different countries and participants from these countries in this map, where all the countries participating are colored. So the gray ones, we don't have representation from them, but basically we are covering a large number of countries, and this is a very interesting new because there is a motivation in many places to be part of this initiative. So thank you very much for registering and being part of this workshop. And now let me introduce you Beatrice Garcia. She's also part of the scientific organizing committee, and I want Beatrice to present herself and also to present our next speakers. So she will be during the first couple of hours, which is the first block of these conferences. So thank you, Beatrice, for being part of the workshop, and I give you the word now. Thank you.
Thank you, Santiago, for this very nice introduction to the workshop. And yes, it's a pleasure to me be the chair of this first session with a diverse talk by Gary Foran. He's a good friend of mine. I knew him some time ago, and there is a lot to talk about Gary Foran, but permit me to introduce him as a person. He grew in Sydney, and when he was a teenager, developed some problems in the vision, and he had night vision lost. And he was able to obtain his PhD in chemistry. And in 1922, he was one of the foundation team members of the synchrotron project, which generate powerful X-rays and to analyze the molecular structure of various substances. And he worked in that field for more than 20 years. But after he turned 40, his visual field began collapsing inward. And after his retirement in 2010, he was in 2015 that Gary heard a radio interview where another good friend, Chef Cook, Professor Chef Cook from Swinburne University of Technology in Australia, starting to talk about a new project, a sonification project to transform the visual data, astronomy is essentially a visual activity, to sound. And he turned to the research connecting with this group in Australia. Now Gary is in Japan because of the pandemic, and I know he presented his second PhD in the university in Australia. He's waiting for the examination results, but probably he will return to Melbourne, and in the new year we'll start again to working with Chef Cookie at Swinburne. So to me, it's a pleasure to introduce you Gary Foran. And Gary, this space is all yours. Gary? Gary, are you there?
He's connected, but I don't know if probably he's experiencing some trouble.
No problem.
Let's wait a few seconds.
Gary Foran, yes.
See. Yeah.
The mic. Okay, let's.
Okay, now he's.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect, Gary.
Great. And is my video on?
For a moment, no.
How's that?
Okay, now, yeah, yes, you are on the screen.
Thank you, Santiago.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Beatrice. Thank you, Santiago. Thank you, everyone, for the invitation. And it's good to see a few familiar names and some new names. And some of you might be a little bit familiar with what I'm about to present. It's not changed a lot. It's changed a little bit in recent times. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here and share and to show you some of the work that we've been doing, why we've been doing it, and a little bit of the outlook for the future. I do have two requests before I begin. One is it's a accessibility issue with Zoom that when I use the screen reader, as I'm obliged to today, Zoom also announces people coming and leaving the meetings, and it reads to me everything that appears in the chat box. So in order that I don't be thrown totally off track, I'd appreciate it if the chat box was silent during the talk, and we'll just have to live with the people coming and going. You will also be able to hear voiceover. I've reduced the voiceover commands to a minimum, just so that I know where I am in the talk. But needless to say, it will be noticeable to some people. I've turned the volume right down. So please just, I thank you for your consideration in that regard. The other request I have is, again, to ask for your understanding. This is the first time I've done a PowerPoint presentation over Zoom remotely. Don't have my usual supports with me, and the things that I usually rely on in order to navigate through my talk and to remind me of the content. So I'll do the best I can from memory. If I go off track, please feel free to shout out and tell me that I'm not on the right slide or something like that. But thank you for your understanding on that front also, but I'll do the best I can. I'm going to try and set up this. Yes?
I will announce you when you had just 5 minutes to the end of your presentation, okay?
Thanks, Beatrice. I'm just going to try and set up the screen sharing now.
Started screen share. Zoom share toolbar window. System dialog. Mute button. Viewer screen sharing. Zoomers has new system dialog. Participants can now see your screen. Microsoft PowerPoint. PowerPoint. ABCS_Bogart menu bar. Apple. PowerPoint. Edit view. Insert format. Arrange. Tools. Slideshow. Slideshow menu. Play from start. Command shift. Return. Play from start. PowerPoint slideshow. ABCS_Bogart November 2021. Window. Slide 1. Layout area.
You got everything there, Beatrice?
Yes, Gary, perfect.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, everyone. Good to be here. And as I said, good to see some familiar names and some new names. And I'm going to speak a little bit about the power of listening to your data. Some of the focus of what I'm talking about today is accessibility oriented. Some of it is oriented towards shall we say, mainstream or not necessarily accessibility-oriented issues. But the point I hope to make today is that these are actually one and the same thing. And ultimately, efforts towards accessibility are in fact an effort on everyone's regard, and in fact everyone can benefit from them. So this is the team at Swinburne and the team at RMIT University in Melbourne who have worked on sonification and on the DWF program that I'll describe. Me and Trooper in the middle, of course. And I'll get started straight away. Beatrice has given my introduction, a little bit of my life story. As it is of now, I've got no functional vision. So I can't see the screen, I can't see any of your faces. And indeed,
Emilio Bayo has joined the meeting.
I can't see too much at all in terms of the outside world anymore. which is fine.
Joshua Cologne has joined the meeting.
Live with that. But it does come with its challenges. And when I came to Swinburne some years ago, they made a little video about me and my guide dog Trooper. And I'm just going to play you that video just as a self-introduction, and then we'll move straight on into the talk.
Gary's a Swinburne researcher, exploring the universe. You might have spotted him on campus with his guide dog Trooper. Gary studies how galaxies are formed. This helps scientists understand the structure of the universe. Gary uses assistive technologies to undertake his research. His loyal companion Trooper also assists him on campus. Trooper takes
Claudia
an active
Rogers
role
has left
in
the meeting.
meetings and is an important part of the Centre for Astrophysics and Supercomputing team. When I first came to Swinburne, I was impressed by the welcome and encouragement from the Centre for Astrophysics team. Gary Foran, PhD candidate, Centre for Astrophysics and Supercomputing.
Inés Rodriguez Hidalgo to everyone. Every time somebody new enter the meeting, I hear a voice announcing his or her name. Is it possible to cancel this voice, please?
I'd be grateful if the chat box was quiet. And no, it's not possible to cancel those notifications. That's my screen reader. So, as I said, I thank you for your understanding on that regard. So,
Slide 3, our motivation.
Our motivation. Clearly, when I started in my PhD program at Swinburne, the first motivation to become involved in sonification and multiple sensory modalities was, of course, to deal with the fact that I couldn't see anything. It wasn't obvious when I started my program that it was going to be even physically possible for someone with no functional vision to do a degree in astrophysics. And I was greatly supported in my endeavours by Swinburne and Jeff Cookie in particular, my PhD advisor, and somehow we found a way. But as we started to work through the various difficulties and challenges as they presented themselves, it became clear to Jeff certainly and to me later that sonification in particular and the use of multiple sensory modalities was
Edward Gomez has joined the meeting.
That could potentially have benefits to answer some of the present, perennial, and future challenges in the field of observational astronomy and astrophysics. And some of them are listed here, and I won't spend a lot of time on them, but those of you who are involved in the field in research will be aware of the ever-increasing volumes of data that are involved in observational astronomy, the ever-increasing rate at which that data is being collected. Facilities like the Square Kilometre Array and the Vera Rubin large survey of space and time will be collecting data at a rate and in volumes that not only present problems for storage, but present an enormous problem for the processing and management and mining and, in fact, analysis. So data volumes is one area. Another is an increasing of volume and
Beatrice Garcia to everyone. Hello, Inés, is the accessibility tool.
Level of activity to in areas of time domain astronomy. Time domain astronomy being an area of high cadence observations, looking for fast transients.
Joshua Cologne has left the meeting.
Looking for
Joshua Cologne has joined the meeting.
That require. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Time domain astronomy.
Inés Rodriguez Hidalgo to everyone. How can I cancel it, please? I hear every comment in the chat. Samarth Jane to everyone. You can not just mention that, just don't comment. Inés Rodriguez Hidalgo to everyone. It's the first time this happens to me in a Zoom meeting.
The other, yep. I'm just having difficulty hearing. That's
all. We have some tool that we hear for the first time is announces about each action we made in the Zoom platform.
Madden's room ready to everyone. I can't hear to Gary. Daniel Gastalu to everyone. Is la tecnologia di lector di pantalla del desertant. Sepud tolera. Juan Pablo Achima has joined the meeting.
Yes, that's right, Daniel. It's a tool at the laptop or computer of Gary. But don't put any comment for a moment during the talk of Gary in the chat, and try to be in the Zoom platform and in a Zoom room to avoid these announces. Okay, it's not a big problem. Go on, Gary. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Beatrice. That's all right. Thank you. It's just one of those things. So there are existing areas of astronomy and astrophysics that can benefit from sonification and multiple sensory modalities, and I'll move quickly on. The last one written there, but of course it's not the least in importance, is of course the social responsibility of inclusion and accessibility in the field. And multiple sensory modalities and sonification in particular is one area that can address that need.
Slide for the merits of using multiple sensory modalities.
The merits of using multiple sensory modalities.
Juan Pablo Achima has left the meeting.
To everybody, but when introduced to the advantages, it becomes clear that there's a synergistic advantage in melding multiple sensory modalities, and in fact, it's the way that we deal with objects and events in the real world. There's a reason why we have 5 senses. And so that in a field like astronomy and astrophysics, which is so dominated by visualizations and by the visual medium, it's not always obvious that there are benefits to be had from mixing our sensory modalities. It's well known, in fact, that mixing sensory modalities, and the more sensory modalities that can be brought to bear on a problem, the better that information is perceived, the better it's interpreted, and the better it's remembered. So there are good reasons why, for everyone, multiple sensory modalities are a good idea. This, of course, has been known for many years in some areas of endeavour, not least of which is the computer gaming community, who are far streets ahead of us in terms of immersive environments and multiple sensory experiences in order to enhance the experience of the game or whatever it is that they're trying to do. So it makes sense, therefore, that if we were to be able to exploit some of the advantages of sonification and multiple sensory modalities to astronomy and astrophysics, there's certainly potential, at least, for faster data analysis, novel and enhanced analysis capabilities, and certainly, as I said before, increased accessibility to BVI participants.
Slide 5, the strengths of audition.
So what are the advantages of audition, and that is of hearing? There's no doubt at all that vision is the primary sense for humans. It's been estimated that approximately 70 to 80% of all information, conscious and subconscious, that enters into our minds is via our eyes. And so it's not a surprise that we rely so heavily on visualization and that it becomes dominant. And the other senses are often overlooked, and their utility are overlooked when we look at analysing digital information. Audio perception has advantages over visual perception in some areas. There are good reasons why we.
Carlos Lafitte to everyone. Buenos dias para todos. Mary Velid. Des el Estado Falcon, Venezuela.
Not just eyes, and that is because our ears can discriminate between over 1,300 individual frequencies over a range from 15 to 20,000 hertz and comfortably over 120 decibels of amplitude range. But there are specific aspects of auditory perception that are actually superior to vision, and I've listed these here. One of them is temporal resolution.
Stavros Katsanovas has left the meeting. Stavros Katsanovas has joined the meeting. Juan Pablo Achimatameo has left the meeting. Nor Hasmin Sabri has left the meeting. Nor Hasmin Sabri has joined the meeting. Helena Dworak has left the meeting. Helena Dworak has joined the meeting.
In fact, our ears are approximately 3 orders of magnitude better at timing.
Veron Raj has left the meeting. Veron Raj has joined the meeting.
Our ears can discriminate on the tens of microseconds scale, whereas our eyes are usually, as I said, about 3 orders of magnitude slower than that, as you would know from the repeat rate of a computer screen, or the line feed in electrical frequency of line electrical items at 50 or 60 hertz. We also have a faster reaction time to audio signals and impulses than we do with our eyes. That's another neurological aspect of hearing that is very important and is in fact exploited in other industries. It's exploited in time-critical situations, in the military and in aircraft safety, for example. Warning signals are given audibly in an audio format rather than a visual format for that reason. Attention selectivity is an important one, especially in the world of astrophysics, where we're so often dealing with low signal-to-noise data. Attention selectivity, often known as the cocktail party effect, whereby our ears are able to select from a stream of noisy data or noisy information a particular stream of data or a particular, or in fact multiple streams of data that are of interest that we can concentrate on. Hearing has also got a better spatial range and is better for an aspherical event localization, unlike our eyes, which only look forward and only have high resolution in the very central few degrees of vision. Hearing, for example, goes in 4 pi steradians.
Juan Pablo Moreira has left the meeting. Juan Pablo Moreira has joined the meeting.
And has an angular resolution of about a degree in that 4 pi steradians, meaning that we can isolate events and localize them to a much higher, across a much greater spatial range than our eyes can. Our ears are also able to interpret multiple streams overlaid on each other. The example of harmonics and of chords in music is a good example, where our ears can in fact discriminate, untangle, and meld as appropriate multiple streams of information, and that in fact is an area that we seek to employ in our sonification work. So what have we developed to try and take advantage of these advantages? Starsound is our basic tool. This is the most advanced tool that we have.
The host has assigned you to type closed caption. Zoomers has new window.
Starsound is a custom-built
Enrique Pérez Montero has left the meeting.
That has been developed for sonification of time series or linear stream data. It's not limited to one-dimensional or one parameter. It can work in multiple channels, but in fact it works best in time series or in spectra or in anything that's moving forward in one direction. As I said, it was built with accessibility in mind, so that while the shots that you can see on the screen and the nature of the program is that it has a graphical user interface for sighted users and plots, etc., that people can work with if they can see them. It also has equal functionality through a text-based configuration file that can be edited with your text editor of choice and screen reading software of choice. And so that there is no functionality of the software that is unavailable to a BVI user, for example. It is also controllable completely, either via the keyboard on the computer or through external devices. Some of you may be familiar with the types of devices used by professional sound engineers and music mixers. So you may be familiar with seeing them with the sliders and the knobs and the buttons. Starsound is also fully configurable with and interfaceable with a sound mixing board, and I have one back in my home lab in Melbourne that I use, which allows me to control in multiple characteristics, multiple channels, and to configure the software and operate it completely by touch and by sound, not having to be able to see anything to operate the software. That's on the input and the operations side. On the output side, the software works on a parameter mapping paradigm, whereby it can map multiple channels of data and fix them to audio characteristics that range from amplitude, that's loudness, through frequency, that's pitch, but can also assign characteristics to each channel or each pulse, such as attack and delay and fade, tremolo, distortion for noise simulation, and it even has a suite of pre-programmed musical instruments for aesthetic reasons. One of the challenges of working with sound for long periods of time is that the sound must be aesthetically pleasing, otherwise it just becomes too tiring and too painful to use. So Starsound has all those capabilities built into it. So I'm going to show you some examples now of the output of Starsound in the context of some astrophysical research.
Animating DWF World 15.
The first is the DWF program. DWF is the Deeper, Wider, Faster observational program headed up by Jeff Cookie at Swinburne. DWF is a fast transient search program that uses 50 observatories around the world and in space, not all simultaneously, some of them doing simultaneous observations, others on call for follow-up and for triggering. DWF spans the electromagnetic spectrum from radio to gamma. It involves particle detectors in neutrinos and cosmic rays, as well as gravitational wave detectors across all 7 continents, including Antarctica. So it's quite a massive program and is a big deal to put together and to run. Sonification is one of the DWF is one of the drivers for the sonification project.
Slide 8, case study 1, DWF data analysis challenges.
The challenges of DWF are that it is a fast transient search, and if the transients that it finds are to be detected, analysed,
Joshua Cologny has left the meeting.
In real time, then they need to be handled both quickly and with a high degree of confidence. DWF generates
Chiamizo Makula has left the meeting.
An image a minute. They are usually stacked over a 3-minute period for depth, and then put into light curves over a period of some minutes after that. So on the
Francesco Di Renzo has left the meeting.
Scale of minutes, there are sometimes hundreds of candidates being identified, and certainly over an observation
Mauricio
night,
Chacon Pachon has left the meeting.
1,000 or more candidates that come up for processing. As I said, those need to be processed. They need to be triaged. They need to be ranked, and they need to be prioritised if we are to follow them up in near real time.
Enrique Perez Montero has left the meeting. Enrique Perez Montero has joined the meeting.
We don't want to go triggering large telescopes and space-based assets on candidates that aren't well verified. So there's a need not only for the supercomputer to do its work and to provide the first pass at candidate identification, but there's also a need for human intervention, and that's where sonification comes into the picture. Perceive is a software tool that's also been developed. This is a web-based, browser-based tool that in fact has been written by one of our team members. While it doesn't yet have sonification built into it, what it does allow is for both professional and citizen scientists to take part in the DWF program as part of the data triaging and management prioritization process.
Sarah Roberts has left the meeting. Sarah Roberts has joined the meeting.
It's not an accessibility tool in terms of multiple sensory modalities. It's certainly an accessibility tool in bringing citizen scientists into the program. And
Rowan Ginela has left the meeting. Rowan Ginela has joined the meeting.
To the program.
Slide 9, case study 1, sonification of a flare star.
So a flare star is one of the sort of transient objects that we often detect in DWF. This particular example is one that we found during a run that I was involved in, and so I sonified it just for the purposes, and I use this as an example. It's a simple example, but it's a good one in that it shows a flare star observed through DWF. The vertical axis is the flux observed through the imaging camera. The horizontal axis is time, and the feature of this flare star is that it rises 5 magnitude in luminosity in just a minute, and then fades away over about a 30-minute period. And if you sonify the signal, the light curve of that flare star, it sounds something like
Animating
this.
flare demo MP4 with play.
that's a simple example.
Slide 11, case study 2, sonification of spectra.
And one that demonstrates a little bit about what star sound can do, especially when it's been pre-configured to take in the output from Perceive or one of the other analysis tools. Getting closer to what I actually do, and that is I work in high redshift galaxies, and I'm a spectroscopist by trade. And so my interest was in having a way in which I could analyse spectral data using sound. Of course, being an X-ray spectroscopist by trade, that's what I used to do in my synchrotron days, I had some familiarity with spectroscopy and the concepts thereof, but I'd never been confronted with the rest frame UV spectrum of a high redshift galaxy before, a star-forming galaxy. And while I could hear in words what the spectrum should look like, it wasn't until I was able to sonify the spectrum and hear the features of the spectrum that I was really able to get, in my mind's eye, a picture of what the spectrum looked like, the meaning of the various features that I had been described to me, and to start to understand the spectroscopy of the galaxies that I was interested in. What we have here are the rest frame UV spectra, one in what we call Lyman alpha in absorption and one in Lyman alpha in emission. And the first thing we're doing when collecting spectral data from these high redshift galaxies is to verify the spectra. And so by using the sound, the initial goals of using sound to analyse these spectra
Rivers
was to
at asu.cas.cz has left the meeting.
Was to identify the spectral features, mainly the Lyman continuum break, the Lyman alpha emission feature itself, and other absorption and emission features that may show up along the way. And that was the goal of doing this. And so I'm going to play you now some spectra of the rest frame UV spectra of the LBGs. For you to hear what I hear and what I heard the first time I was able to sonify these.
Slide 12.
This is the
Juan Pablo Moreira has left the meeting. Juan Pablo Moreira has joined the meeting.
4 minutes to the end.
The feature of the emission, of course. Sorry?
Gary, you have 4 minutes to...
Thank you.
Jake Noel Store has left the meeting. Jake Noel Store has joined the meeting. Francesco Di Renzo has left the meeting. Francesco Di Renzo has joined the meeting.
The Lyman alpha in emission, which you heard then. And if you had very good ears, I'll play it one more time. Not only can you hear the Lyman break and the Lyman alpha in emission, you can also hear the Lyman beta break if you listen very carefully, which is between the continuum break and the Lyman alpha feature in emission.
Rewind, animating LBG emission while we play.
You got to be quick, but it's there. So that's what it sounds like in emission. In absorption, we get quite a different response.
Slide 13. Animating LBG. Juan Pablo Moreira has left the meeting. Juan Pablo Moreira has joined the meeting.
I'll play that one more time so you can hear the difference between the absorption and emission.
Zeus Amoy Lucas has left the meeting. Zeus Amoy Lucas has joined the meeting.
There it is. So with a little bit of training and a little bit of practice, you can hear quite clearly the difference in the spectra in absorption and emission.
Farron Raj has left the meeting.
And obviously identify the spectral features that are needed for a redshift determination, or at least a rough redshift determination.
Slide 14, unknown.
This is what I see when I see the spectrum. And
animating LBG absorption while we
this
play.
is what I hear. That's, of course, an absorption spectrum. In case you picked that up, but I won't drill on that. I'll move on.
Slide 15, UG. Slide 16, Lie Alpha versus Galaxy properties, multi-parameter
The main
space.
part of my research is Lyman alpha, the spectral properties of Lyman alpha and how they relate to the properties of galaxies. Lyman alpha is a resonant line and is related to many other galactic properties. The key point of my research is to try and link those relationships together in a way that allows us to make statistical and predictive or predictions about the nature of galaxies on a population basis. Morphology being a particularly good one, as you can see there. Lyman alpha in absorption and emission is quite closely related to galaxy morphology, and so that's the nature of my work.
Slide 17, Lie Alpha versus Galaxy properties, multi-parameter
It's also related to large and small scale structure and the photometric properties of the galaxies. So by analysing the photometric properties of the galaxies, we're in a position to make predictions about a whole range of other galactic properties, if only I could see the spectra, or in fact the plots. An important feature that's been part of my work is relating the Lyman alpha properties of the galaxies to the
Marta Garcia Arribas has left the meeting.
To the kinematic properties of the galaxies, namely that Lyman alpha absorbers have been found to be strongly rotators usually. Mergers were found to lie in the middle of a colour magnitude diagram, and the dispersion-dominated galaxies were found to be Lyman alpha emitters, which all sounds very good, and they lie on the plots nicely, and they're also related, as I said, to the large-scale structure of the universe. So there's lots of correlations that can be found there, except I can't see the 2D plots.
Slide 18, Vox Magellan V1.
So Vox Magellan was the second tool that we developed. Vox Magellan is a 2D tactile software utility, so that the thing that it has over Starsound is that it relies on the basic premise of Vox Magellan is that a 2D image is mapped onto the touchpad of your computer or some external device, which serves as a tactile map of the image that you wish to interrogate. It can be used to interrogate 2D plots, or in fact any image at all, and I'll show examples of that.
Animating Vox Magellan.
So this is an example of the colour magnitude diagram with the different kinematic types mapped onto the colour magnitude diagram. And while you can see the cursor moving around on the image, imagine that's your finger on the touchpad. So with the image projected on the touchpad, I can move my finger around and identify different galaxies with different properties on the image or on the plot.
Juan Pablo Moreira has left the meeting. Juan Pablo Moreira has joined the meeting.
Multi-dimensional aspects of the data, so that it's not only what you can see on the plot, but I can map other channels of data so that while it's a 2D plot, I can be in fact listening to multiple dimensions of data space, and you can hear those different dimensions in the changing tones. There's a harmonic component there that's going in and out. There it is. And so that I can use that to map different properties of the galaxies, not only their kinematics, not only their colour magnitude, but things like their star formation rate, their mass, their age, or other properties.
Slide 20, Vox Magellan, images and IFU spectra.
The other application of Vox Magellan, as I mentioned, my research relates to mapping kinematic properties with Lyman alpha and relating that to other galactic properties and environments. And this is a zoomed in image of a high redshift galaxy. It's pixelated because it's zoomed in very close with an integral field unit spectrograph. And the colours of the galaxy are not real colours, of course, but they relate to the velocity of the gas as it rotates around the galaxy, with blues being gas moving towards us, red being gas moving away from us, and the other colours in between being gas that's not moving as fast or is stationary relative to the observer. So what Vox Magellan allows me to do is map across, first of all, I can find the outline of the galaxy in the image by moving my finger around the outside so I can get a sense of the size and the shape of the galaxy. And then by moving across the image, it's possible to identify the kinematic gradient, the velocity gradient of the image, the orientation of the velocity gradient, or in fact, if it's a case where there's no velocity gradient, that too is obvious.
Slide 21, Vox Magellan, images and IFU spectra.
This is an even more sophisticated example of the same thing. In this one, we actually encode a repetition rate so that the repetition rate of the sound corresponds to the velocity of the gas. And there is a tonal shift between positive and negative so that not only can I identify a velocity gradient, I can get a sense of how big the velocity gradient is, and which part of the galaxy is red and which is blue.
Animating pulse rate cost 405094 MP. Animating picture 6 with fade.
There's the tonal shift as it went from one side to the other. And there's the increase in the repetition rate corresponding to the increased velocity of the gas. So that's Vox Magellan.
Slide 22 summary.
So I'll finish off there. They're the tools that we've developed. They continue to progress.
Dayna Thompson has left the meeting.
They're useful as a general tool. We're currently working on the ability to use Vox Magellan to convert figures in presentations like this, or in anyone's presentation in real time, to a sonic image. That requires the development of standards, and we're doing that along with some collaborators around the world. As a research tool, they are particularly powerful in terms of their multidimensional, their ability to render multidimensional data and data sets that are often challenged by the limitations of 2D or pseudo 3D visualizations. And the future for this work lies, especially with the DWF project, with the implementation of virtual reality and augmented reality, along with things like ampersonics, which will increase the multi-dimensional aspect for the observer and add more sensory modalities, so that the participant in the candidate identification process is actually
Brian Kent has left the meeting. Brian Kent has joined the meeting.
I hope I've been able to show a little bit about how sonification has helped me, some of the potential that it has for helping everyone. And I want to finish the...
Zeus Amoy Lucas has left the meeting. Zeus Amoy Lucas has joined the meeting.
A quote from the global head of accessibility at Apple Computers, who described...
Louisa Valdivieso Casas has left the meeting.
Described this as, in fact, an unexpected surprise when she discovered that accessibility is actually for everyone, and what a thrill it was for them when they discovered that by meeting someone's accessibility needs, they actually found applications well beyond what they ever imagined, and in fact potential for everyone to benefit from the better design, the enhanced design.
Marta Garcia Aravis has left the meeting. Marta Garcia Aravis has joined the meeting.
Capability. So that's where I'll finish off. I'm happy to answer some questions, and I apologise for the disruptions.
End of slideshow. Click to exit layout area. ABCS under.
Can I take you up there? Beatrice, can I?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello. Gary?
Yes?
Are there? Okay. Thank you very much for your amazing talk. It was fantastic, really. I know very well these developments, and I assure that this the future. In fact, is the future for not only for the people who cannot see, but for everyone, because the multisensorial detection of the features in the data are the new approach to the analysis of the data. Well, we open 10 minutes period of questions. Remember, you know now that that the assistive technologies permit that the question and answer space and the chat space being here by the people. So if you enter the room, you go out the room. If you put questions or suggestions or comments in the chat space, Gary will hear everything. So the idea is, if you want to make the questions in loud, please open your phone and the camera and put your hand on. We will try to follow. We are 77 participants in this moment, so open the phone and the mic and make your question, or put the question in the chat. So,
may I ask something?
Yes.
Hello, this is Madan. So I'd like to ask you something. This is for everyone, okay? Now, the eyes don't see, the nose doesn't smell it. It's on the brain that does the detection part of whatever information, right? Hello?
Yes, thank you for your question. I didn't catch the question. Did you catch that, Beatrice?
No, my question is, what about if we send the signals directly to the brain instead of hearing sound or light or anything? Why can't we work directly on interfacing brain with the signals that you will receive from the space or anywhere? That would be like a gift to everyone. And besides brain-to-brain communication, if we develop, then there will be no barrier of language as well. My point is, why can't we just go into the brain itself, in the sense, alter our brain cells, make some artificial adjustments in the brain, and then let the brain do the observations by itself?
I think that would be wonderful if we could do that. But I don't believe that the technology exists at the moment to do that.
Yeah. But then we should start working towards that kind of a technology, especially because nowadays these brain surgeries are becoming more and more successful. So all we need to do is to identify different parts of the brain that actually deal with these sensory things like smell, sound, touch, speech, or vision. That would be really a wonderful world if we could involve brain to do all the stuff that we want.
I agree. Thank you.
Gary? Oh, sorry, madam. Yeah?
Hello?
Are you finished, madam?
Yes, I'm finished with my
Thank you very much.
suggestion, but I would like to see the day when I would be my brain would be equipped by such sensors.
We have another question, Gary, is from Hugo Alberto Jasso. He's asking you about the number of astronomers who can benefit with these technologies. If you know the number of these astronomers which can use or are benefit with the technologies that you use.
The point I guess I was trying to make was that the utility of this approach is not limited to people with poor vision, but in the hands of someone who is trained and is prepared to put the time in. The multiple sensory modality approach, either by sound, by tactile feedback, or by immersive technologies, in the right application, it could benefit anyone. That was a point I was hoping to make. In terms of visually impaired astronomers that I know, they are few, but they are out there, and in fact I find more and more. The more people I meet and the more people I hear from. So, and it's not limited just to serious visual impairment. There are lots of good reasons why listening to data can be helpful and useful. And so yes, I think the capacity, the potential for application is much bigger than just people who don't see.
Yes, indeed. Stavros?
Yes, first of all, it was really impressive, I have to say. I'm the director working here with Rwanda, Diaz Merced, as you surely know. And for instance, we just had, published a catalog of 90 black holes. And my dream would be to make a sort of a map. There are some maps circulating, but that could be accessible to all. And yes. I did not understand in your stars. I mean, first the sound that, of course, associates a CBC, as we call compact binary coalescence. It is, of course, the whip sound that you hear in the bird. Yes, that's the first sound. But I saw, and I admit, at some moment I was distracted. I saw what you did before the Vox Magellan, where you had, a galaxy, and you were pushing on each of these red, and what were the sounds accompanying that? What were the processes that were sonified? I wanted to understand.
So you want to know what the sounds were, or what the properties were? The
processes that you sonified when you were touching each.
Oh, the process. That was, they were different kinematic types.
I see.
Distributed on a color magnitude diagram, if I remember correctly.
I see.
So the feature of Vox Magellan that's really neat is it can work in two ways. You can either feed it data in arrays or vectors, and it will pixelate that data, that digital data, into an image which it then sonifies, or it can just take a 2D image, like the IFU map, the kinematic, the kinematic map that I showed last, and just do a sonification on the pixelation. So it's actually quite flexible and versatile. So that's why it can work either for 2D plots of columns of data, or in fact just an image file. You can read it straight in and it'll do a default sonification on that, which of course then can be configured. But it's actually quite powerful in that sense that it's very flexible and forgiving, but it's also configurable.
I see. Very good. Thank you very much. Impressive. Once more.
Sandro Bardelli.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary, for this talk. I would like to ask you, from visual inspection, you are related only a few dimensions, essentially 3 dimensions with colors, and then not much that. For the sonification, there is some saturation level in the number of dimensions that is not possible to go far out.
Is that a question?
Yes.
No, absolutely, and it's the number of dimensions that could be included in a single tone and still remain meaningful. Obviously, is limited by the ability of our brain to process that. The advantage of using something like Star Sound or Vox Magellan is that I can read multiple parameters into the sonification tool, and then I can mute or I can weight them according to what it is I want to listen to or what relationship I want to investigate. So that you're right, that just to overlay everything would be a cacophony of noise in many cases. But the flexibility to read in multi-dimensional data and then select what you want to listen to for any particular galaxy or for any particular data point, and then switch quickly between those weightings or those data streams of interest is one of the powers. So that in that sense, it is more efficient than doing 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 different 2D or pseudo 3D plots or animations trying to access the same number of parameters. So it's another modality that gives you a way to investigate multi-dimensions in a more, potentially a more efficient way.
Then you are using stereo phony?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the default mode is stereo, but that's limited really only by your sound reproduction equipment, we can very easily in Star Sound and in fact in Vox Magellan build in spatial distribution of sound if you have the equipment to produce that. So you can Vox Magellan in particular can give an up and down dimension and a left and right dimension. And using sonic morphology, they call it, you can actually get a depth sense. So that there are a lot of sonic tools that the sound engineers know that I don't know. There's a lot of secrets they have, but all of those are really limited only not by the software, but by the limitations of your sound reproduction equipment.
Thank you.
Well, we have not a lot of time, but we have two hands raised a long time here in the Zoom. So Vanessa and Erika, you have the opportunity to make your questions. First, Vanessa Moss.
Thanks. Thanks, Beatrice. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Cool. So I asked my question in the chat, but I'm not sure if it came through okay, Gary, so I can just quickly repeat it.
That's all right, Vanessa.
I was going to ask about the potential for combining sonification with like AI or machine learning. So in, visual-driven data, we talk a lot about outlier detection or things like that. Yep. I was wondering if, you've been exploring that in terms of can this give a different, unique kind of discovery space if you're combining audio methods with these kind of techniques?
Yep, good idea. We haven't gone down that path, but it's certainly a conceptual idea we've had, particularly for the DWF project or for the very deep data mining for the big data sets, where you rely on AI or some other large volume method to do your course passing and classification, I guess. In the DWF context, certainly it's the human intervention stage where sonification and the multisensory approach is most valuable, because verification is so critical with the assets that are being deployed. But there's no doubt that the AI and aspect of dealing with these sorts of data volumes is critical, and certainly would go hand in hand with these sort of methods. They'd be complementary rather than certainly not exclusive, and not replacing one or the other.
Thanks.
Thank you. Erika, you are the last one. I promise to the people who is writing in the chat, I will share. Well, Gary will read everything.
Please send
and I will share with him the text in order to give the answers. But Erika, you are the last.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you.
Live.
Well, thank you, Gary. I'm really happy to have seen your presentation. I'm from Chile, and here we are working a lot in outreach for people with visually impaired or blindness and some other disabilities. And we have been falling in love with that. It's so difficult to come back, to start to I don't know, whenever you start to use these tactile models or sounds or description, you want to keep there. Yeah. What happened with sonification? Have you seen how difficult it is for an astronomer to learn, to train their ears, to get the data? And what happened then?
Passive resistance, shall we, process to bring. However, the gravitational wave chirp sound to make it. If you speak to applications with her team, sonification out there, that the problem from the research perspective, one of the things that is difficult with sound, while I only presented either as an output and into a text file, my input, they're not, while they have general applications, especially in outreach, but data analysis.
The discussion and it's very interesting, but we have a minute. Age and your time, and I will.
Of international collaborations for step of the presentation, science diplomacy with international and with an aim to be a school curriculum and intending to for processed images of the celestial, being engaged in many of exploration and learning for this, and well, in this context, the school Pakistan, and subsequently for 40 students to utilize this recently after being nominated. Participated in a frontiers bringing and designed the lessons for bringing forth European Union projects. The girls from the school participate in structures like Virgo, while infrastructure of a global.
The Frontiers in Rainforest, especially a virtual visit program, introduced this cutting-edge research of outreach videos, and I hope to be able to with an introductory presentation. The visit researchers, they were able to interact 15 years old from the school, 15 years old from the same school. I go to see a remote facility miles away from my country and felt as if I was right here. And this is something that the COVID situation helped us, let's say, being able to. Dayna, friend.
But this is just a theory and detect gravitational, and then it hits the beam splitter, fall upon the detector. Contracts the gravitational, there is no light at all. December 2015, and it was a really huge discovery in the world of physics and science.
So we showed very briefly the work of one of the students, and finishing this part, I would like to say that the Frontiers in Rainforest teams aiming to reach out to the whole world and to every classroom and to help every student learn more about these scientific discoveries. We are very grateful for the collaboration with the School of Astronomy and Physics by Mirwat and her fantastic students. Looking forward to continuing and enriching this collaboration.
Thank you, panelists.
In the classes.
Okay, thank you for your question. Okay.
Would you like to answer?
Panelists, if you would like to answer, please.
No. Would you like to, please? I have no problem.
Yes, what is the impact? Really, the teachers take these initiatives as part of the formal education?
I can tell you that. The point is that the topics that we introduce through such interventions are usually beyond the scope of the school curricula. I mean, in most countries that virtual visits have been implemented, students are not even learning about the fundamentals of special relativity. Therefore, what we do is actually to try to inspire them to learn more, to inspire school projects or out-of-school activities with their teachers in order to help introduce them to these topics. What we have seen so far is that these activities are, let's say, are inspiring. The students want to learn more, and Mirwat can attest to that. But unfortunately, the lack of connection to the curriculum makes it difficult to, let's say, mainstream it in the school, the everyday life, unless we work in a project-style format. I don't know if I answered you.
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. And now we invite Alessandra Zanazzi from Italy. From INAF to talk about a permanent and inclusive exhibition at INAF Arcetri Astrophysical. Ahí está, Arcetri Astrophysical Observatory. And welcome, Alessandra. Your time starts now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. Sorry, I have lost the okay. So thank you very much, Beatrice. I want to thank you and thank you both for this beautiful workshop and occasion. I'm really excited and it's really interesting. I am Alessandra Zanazzi and I work at INAF, like Beatrice said, which is the Italian National Institute for Astrophysics. And I would say it's the main Italian institution for the study and research of astrophysics and astronomy, but also we have a strong commitment and we are involved in many outreach activities. And the idea that we are getting at INAF is that an inclusive approach should be the standard in the designing of educational and outreach activities. because we think that we're curious about the universe, about the world around us, and we have a duty of being inclusive and try and include everyone. And if we use different approaches and different languages to tell our stories, which means also many senses and many approaches, we can everybody can benefit from these. And so we try and apply the so-called universal design, thinking about activities and resources that have the maximum possible usability without any need for adaptation. And I would like to talk about a practical example that we carried out in Florence, where I work at the Arcetri Observatory, with a sort of permanent exhibition, something which is a small exhibition, of course, but it's also intended for blind people, And this is hosted inside the historical dome of the historical telescope in Arcetri, and is built, of course, on Moon of the Touch of the Universe project or other similar activities. And we also use very simple 3D prints models that are again thought for the blind and for the blind and visually impaired people, but also